So, a very good morning. It's Dr. Ryan here again. Thank you once more for joining me, even as we embark on our third algorithm in the series of 47 algorithms in internal medicine. A quick thank you to everybody who has viewed my previous two videos on anemia and hemolytic anemia. I hope you have been blessed and been edified through it. And without much further ado, let's dig into pancytopenia. So let's just lay a quick foundation for pancytopenia. It describes the simultaneous presence of leukopenia, anemia, and thrombocytopenia. So we're looking at the three main lines of blood cells being affected and being reduced in number. Okay, that's white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets all are down. Mature blood cells are developed in the bone marrow and eventually cleared by the reticuloendothelial system. Symptoms of pancytopenia include generalized weakness, dyspnea, chills, weight loss, easy bruising, all right, and easy or prolonged bleeding. Okay, physical findings of pancytopenia include fever, pallor, splenomegaly, hepatomegaly, jaundice, petechial rash, and lymphadenopathy. Pancytopenia can develop as a result of one of these four processes that we have here in our four arms of the algorithm: bone marrow hypoplasia, ineffective hematopoiesis, infiltration, or hypersplenism. Okay, so bone marrow hypoplasia, this describes an abnormally low proportion of hematopoietic stem cells in the absence of an infiltrative process. And some causes of hypoplasia can be anticipated and some are reversible, like cytotoxic chemotherapy. So if you progress through here in a systematic way, medications, as you know, some of them can cause bone marrow hypoplasia. The typical example there is your chemotherapeutic agents. Some toxins can cause bone marrow hypoplasia as well. Infections, the likes of your viral infections, CMV, EBV, parvovirus. Pregnancy can do it. Paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria we touched on in yesterday's algorithm, where we said it's complement-mediated red cell lysis, and it's one of the causes of pancytopenia. Then, of course, we have aplastic anemia as well, which is essentially bone marrow failure, and it can be inherited. And it can be idiopathic. Okay. So irreversible hypoplasia is referred to as aplastic anemia, and that's what we're speaking of in this instance. Under the heading of ineffective hematopoiesis, this is the failure to produce mature blood cells as a result of dysfunctional progenitor cells despite the presence of a normal or hypercellular bone marrow. And by and large, here we speak to megaloblastic anemia and myelodysplasia. Both of these are macrocytic anemias, as we covered in our first algorithm. Megaloblastic anemia, we said, referred to the presence of round macrocytes on the film, and it's classically associated with B12, folate deficiency, copper deficiency, as well as some toxins like ARVs. Infiltration of bone marrow describes the replacement of hematopoietic stem cells with non-adipose tissue, resulting in extramedullary hematopoiesis. Okay, and here we just speak to three things: malignancy, infection, myelofibrosis. So the bone marrow becomes packed and infiltrated with these malignant cells, or with infection, or basically with adipose tissue or fibrous tissue. Hypersplenism is characterized by splenomegaly and peripheral cytopenias in the setting of normal or hypercellular bone marrow. And here, the different causes, like congestion, for instance, the classic setting is that of portal hypertension. Then any hematological disorder, any autoimmune disease like SLE, etc., and infiltrative disorders, which can be cryoglobulinemia, hemochromatosis, amyloid, porphyria, and even sarcoidosis. So there you have it, folks. We're looking at, 13 causes here of pancytopenia. But having said that, I also am a sucker for mnemonics. I love mnemonics, and here's a handy mnemonic, and this is my go-to one for pancytopenia. The mnemonic is panic, P-A-N-I-C, but I'm looking at 3 I's, so it's I to the power 3. So your P here for pancytopenia is paroxysmal nocturnal hemoglobinuria. Your A stands for aplastic anemia, which we know is bone marrow failure, which could be idiopathic 50% of the time. It can be due to infections like EBV, CMV, parvovirus, hepatitis, like we said. It can be Fanconi's anemia. All right, drug-induced in the way of chemotherapy or gold, and it could be toxin-induced. So the N from panic stands for neoplastic, where we're looking at leukemias like acute myeloid leukemia or chronic lymphocytic leukemia. It could be a myelodysplastic syndrome or bone marrow metastasis. The I, the first of the three I's, is infection, which speaks to sepsis, TB, parvovirus, or fungal infections. I could also be insufficiency in the way of folate or B12 insufficiency, so you don't have enough precursors to make your blood cells. And I can also be iatrogenic in the way of chemotherapy. And then C stands for consumption in the way of hyperosmotism or immune-mediated destruction. So you think pancytopenia, you think panic, or you can think our beloved algorithm here. So this has been our third algorithm in internal medicine. Thank you so much once more for joining me. I just want to leave you with Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, which says, "Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you." If there's anything that you want, I think you should just ask God and He will undertake for you. So I pray that this has been a wonderful algorithm, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I hope to see you on the next folder. Next folder, we're going to be talking about platelet disorders, qualitative and quantitative, exciting stuff. Have yourself a wonderful day. And